At 18 years old, I was sentenced to serve 32 years in Virginia prison, and that was twice the high point of the sentencing guidelines. And at that point, I hated myself. I hated the harm that I had caused. I hated the disappointment that I laid on my family and my friends. I hated myself in the beginning. Like, I wouldn't have been doing the things that I was doing. I wouldn't have been strung out. I wouldn't have been robbing and shooting. I wouldn't have been crazy if I didn't hate myself. But I didn't have any sense of hope that it could get better or that I could change. And I definitely didn't have any sense of hope that it would change in prison, because who gets better in prison? Like, prison is a place people go to get worse. And so it was a struggle to get through. It was a struggle to find the energy and the hope. And I had little moments and little flashes, and they all came from one thing. They came from sticking with what was uncomfortable. They came with being in that place. I remember the first time I meditated, it was 15 minutes, and it felt like 17 hours, and the worst 17 hours I can imagine. My mind was racing, my body was just like crawling, like I just could not be there, but somehow I stayed there. I stayed in the discomfort. And I remember when I was done, when the watch went off, I just slumped to the floor in relief. And it was the first time that I really realized I can be there in discomfort. I can be there with uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable sensations, uncomfortable thoughts, and I don't have to react. Because for almost my entire life, I'd been reacting. I was a pinball, just bouncing from place to place, responding to people or environments or negative feelings. Like, ooh, I'm in pain, I need to take that away. Ooh, I feel uncomfortable, I need to take something to make me feel better. And I didn't understand that there was a choice. I didn't understand that, like Viktor Frankl said, there is freedom between stimulus and response. There's a place where we can pause and then we can choose rather than just reacting. And so by sitting with that, I began to get to know myself better. I began to understand and accept myself. I began to even stop hating myself so much. Because what I realized is that if I stayed in that guilt and I stayed in that self-hatred, I wasn't going to become a better person. Because I was going to continue to be down on myself. I was going to continue to beat myself. I was going to continue to self-medicate. I was going to continue to make bad choices. It was only by accepting what I had done and accepting who I was and moving forward and making different decisions that I could become someone different. Because we have this idea that we're a monolith. Like, we just turn on a dime and we change and we have an intention and things will be different, but we're not. We're a collection of habits. We're a collection of just patterns. Like, we are the things that we do. So if I make different decisions every day and build different habits every day, I'm gonna become a different person. But if I make one grand decision and then keep doing the same thing, nothing's gonna change. So it was realizing that. And it was meditation, and it was exercise, and it was learning, it was education. And so I began to have a different sense of myself, a different understanding of what I could do or who I was in the world. And then even more than that, I began realizing that I could help other people. And I had somebody that kind of pulled me out of my shell, because I was up waiting for the lieutenant's office trying to get a job when I was locked up. And the guy said, look, man, I see you reading all the time, I see you exercising, I think that's great, but nobody's an island. Like, you can't do this alone. One day you're gonna wake up and you're gonna realize that life is all about people. And something about the way he said it, because it wasn't judgmental, he wasn't telling me what I should do or what I had to do. He was very clearly sharing from his own experience, and that changed what I was doing. I realized, like, yeah, I built a bubble around myself because I thought, oh, if I can just better myself out of this situation, it'll be okay. But I can't do that. Like, I'm not alone in the world. We're all connected. And what I realized is that by helping other people, I found a sense of peace in myself that I'd never found when I was doing something for me. When I was trying to make money, or when I was trying to, better myself, or I was trying to get a six-pack, like, it felt good, I enjoyed it, but I never had that deep sense of satisfaction. But when I tutored somebody, or when I was a mentor and I worked with guys that were struggling with mental illness, guys that were struggling with depression and addiction, I felt better. I felt like I had meaning. I felt the depth of myself. And that was the shift. Once I realized that it's not all about me, and that every time I feel self-pity, I need to honor that. I need to honor that I'm hurting or honor that something going on, then I need to go forward and I need to find a way to help someone else, or to help someone else. There's so many options in this world that aren't just us. But I know for me, I don't know how. I grew up and I thought it was just about me. I was just self-centered and I was lost. And that's what led me to so much pain, and that's what led me to so much harm. And so I'm grateful for the people that pulled me out of that, and that reminded me that life is about people, it's about experiences, it's about being out in the world. It's not about being locked in a shell, because that's my go-to. And even now, I got out of prison and I thought, oh, everything will change, the world will open up. And I felt myself contracting in, because it's scary, it's uncomfortable, and it's so much easier to go back into that shell. But when I stay outside, when I push outside my comfort zone, when I connect with people who want to grow and change and give to the world, I experience the things a lot differently. And there's still struggles and there's still setbacks, but I feel like I'm on this consistent trajectory, and that it all started with having to cope with this unimaginable thing, with having to spend most of my life in prison. And if it hadn't been for that, I don't know that I would be as accepting and as kind of aware as I am. So I don't want to say I'm grateful, and I definitely wouldn't go back and do the things that I'd done just to have that experience, because I caused incredible harm. But I am grateful for the pain that got me to this place. Somebody shared a quote this morning. It was something like, "You will never know the terrible violence that brought me to this place of kindness." And I think that's true. I think that really is. It takes trauma, it takes pain, it takes some sort of violence, whether it's emotional or physical, to really teach us the value of kindness, of compassion, of presence, of gentleness. And in a weird way, I'm thankful for that violence. As painful as it was, and as difficult as it was, and as many scars as I have, it allowed me to become the person that I am.